Kathy, you are live.
William, am I on air?
You are live on the air right now.
This is Kathy Daniel.
Okay, welcome
And my
back.
question for the rabbi is concerning Paul on the road to Damascus. In their New Testament, their Jesus appeared to the disciples after he was in between him rising and being resurrected. But as far as Paul's concerned, Paul only seen a light, and I don't think it was Jesus that Paul seen. That Christians seem to think that Paul seen Jesus, but I don't think that was Jesus appearing to Paul, because it only says that he seen a light. He didn't see Jesus himself. So could you explain that one?
So as it turns out, the description of Paul's supposed encounter with Jesus does not appear once, but appears a few times. And oddly, within the book of Acts itself, the story changes a bit. I don't engage in this much, not because it's not valid, it is valid. We do find, in fact, in Acts, a light is shown, but nothing's heard. We find another text that hearing but not seeing. But I think this is minor. I think the story was invented. The point of it is to lend credibility to Paul. That was the purpose of the book of Acts, that Paul's Christology is correct, and Paul has it directly from Jesus. That's the point. You can't get into whether the light or whether the whatever experience is being conveyed. They're contradictory, which tells us that this is being created and editing, and they just didn't clean it up. And you find that very frequently in the Christian Bible, where they just don't clean up the story, where you can have John the Baptist early on in Matthew 3 knowing exactly who Jesus is and how important Jesus is, and then later on in Matthew 11, he doesn't know who he is when he's in prison, going, are you him? If you're not him, who is it? So the answer is this thing is all edited together, and the texts don't agree with each other. So as it turns out, we have contradictory stories in the book of Acts of what exactly was the phenomena that Paul experienced as he was sent on a mission by the high priest from Jerusalem to Damascus in order to persecute Christians. This is nonsensical. Nobody in Jerusalem had authority in Damascus. No one in Jerusalem would care about what was going on in Damascus. They had bigger problems than a bunch of Christians with white outfits, schmatters running around. That's not their concern. Their concern was they were living in hell. And there's no Jew in Eretz Yisrael would be sent on missions to Damascus about Christians, about a bunch of guys who thinks the Messiah had come. They had huge problems, much more severe problems than this. Moreover, the high priest would have been a Sadducee. Paul, we are told, he admits it himself in Galatians 1 and Philippians 3 that he was a Pharisee. Not any Pharisee, he was a Pharisee of Pharisees. Pharisees of Pharisees, or we are told in in Acts, he was a student of Gamliel. You know what it meant to be a student of Gamliel? Gamliel was one of the greatest rabbis of the generation. Gamliel, he was a student of Gamliel, and there's no record of anywhere a student of Gamliel wouldn't be persecuting Christians. Gamliel, we are told in Acts 5, is introduced to a early Christian, and Gamliel says, don't do anything to him. That was the attitude. Not go to another country and start persecuting Christians. I would strongly advise, when speaking to Christians, these people really are believing people, they're sincere people, take your time, but don't engage in these little picayune matters. What exactly happened? Did he hear? Did he see? Did he see? Not hear, heard, but he didn't see. He saw a little, not too much. This is all will sound strange to the Christian. The stories are very well written, and these books were no doubt rewritten, edited, until what we have today. That's why there's so many conflicts. That's why the texts, the Greek manuscripts which we have, which number nearly 6,000, contradict each other so frequently. many of the contradictions are attributed, certainly, to scribal error and simple mistakes, but many of them are not. They're just different views that are interpolated into the text for the purpose of producing a new Christology or cleaning up a story, making Jesus look better, making Paul look better, whatever had to happen. Putting in, whether it's the adulterous woman, whether inserting into Luke 22 a Eucharist which didn't exist in the early manuscripts. So that's what's happening here. In terms of the scope of contradiction in the Christian Bible, there's much more interesting stuff than this. Of course, it points to the fact that these stories are invented, and the editors of the book of Acts don't get it straight. As we find this is in the Christian Bible, we find within the book of Matthew, within the book of Mark, they're self-contradictory very, very frequently. Why? Because they edited, they didn't care. They wanted the story to sound good. Does someone need to die for your sins? Not. Is everybody perfect? Does everybody sin? According to Luke 1, Elizabeth and Zechariah was sinless. 1:6. That doesn't mesh with everything else. Church, it doesn't make a difference. For the story, it's good. Elizabeth and Zechariah have to be perfect. That's the way the book goes. It's not written the way that one conforms with the other. Today we have more literacy among Christians than they did in the 2nd century. So today Christians are discovering these things more rapidly, and they have to address these questions very swiftly in a way that they didn't have to in the past. Anyways, thank you for your question.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא